When Bangladesh gets into trouble, let me read to you the kind of sympathy they show Bangladesh.
In 1974, Lee Kuan Yew reminded every Singaporean that, if you screw up your own country, get ready for no one to save you.
Now let me go to the other extreme. The poor. You know, you've read about Bangladesh. Famine. Floods. Well, when we discipline ourselves, the Western journalists say authoritarian government. Dictatorial, no freedom. When Bangladesh gets into trouble, let me read to you the kind of sympathy they show Bangladesh. I'm reading from a very reputable newspaper called the London Times of the 14th of August. And they signed themselves. Now, Mr. Nicholas Ashford, he writes, Bangladesh lives continuously on the brink of disaster, and it is hardly surprising that many foreign aid officials have become fatalistic. Some believe Bangladesh can never become economically viable and will always have to be supported by massive injections of foreign assistance. Even optimists expect that the country will require sustained large-scale aid for many, many years. And self-sufficiency will only be possible if the high population growth rate can be curbed. See, when you can't put your house in order, they say, well, there you are. Hopeless case, non-viable. No, all the sympathy you get are just words. Another correspondent, same newspaper, 3 articles on a human tragedy. And it says, Michael Hornsby from Dhaka. He's more sympathetic because he's right there on the spot. So far, the only international response to the Bangladesh government's appeal for help has been a trifling contribution of $20,000 US, of course, from the United Nations Disaster Relief Office in Dhaka, and an aircraft load of supplies from Britain. Anywhere between 60 million, 60, 70 million, they haven't taken a census for some time. There's been a war, many have died, but definitely not less than 55 million people. 70,000 square miles. And the ending is, Michael Hornsby from Dhaka, there is probably also a feeling that the floods do not represent a compelling case for a special international relief effort, inasmuch as they are an annual phenomenon with which Bangladesh must learn to cope with its own resources if it is to be a viable country. If it is to be a viable country, this is an annual phenomenon, you cope. Well, there's a moral in all this for us, isn't there? If we don't cope with our problems, that's the sympathy we'll get. And even as we are coping with our problems, the rumors that go out. Singapore is not viable. Mind you, it's a honk. I don't blame them. They tried. No hinterland, no oil. Viability, as you have seen, 70,000 square miles, 55 million people. And the conclusion, Michael Hornsby from Dhaka writes is, must learn to cope with its own resources if it is to be viable. And I think that's the first lesson. We learn to cope with our problems.